Hello traders and welcome to part 2 in the order flow trading series. In today's video we're going to be looking at a medium term and longer term trading approach that you can take with a macro view of order flow. I want you guys to think of just 3 words that you're going to be using throughout this session and also throughout all your future order flow sessions, regardless of whether you just trade or whether you analyze. Action and reaction. Things are constantly changing in order flow. And what you have to pay attention to is how those changes influence the best bid, the best offer, market buying, and market selling. Really, what this means is look for any change in order flow and how that changes price. Okay? Let's begin. And if you can get very good at this, then you can actually be able to find what the true supply demand is at any point in time. And then from there, you can determine if price is going to go up or down, and you can make money from that. Look here at this range. I know that the spinning wheel of death kept coming up there, but look at this range right here in the 7,800s, the upper 7,800s, right? What do we see? Well, the first thing that I see is I actually see some very strong bidding, and I don't really see some very strong offering at that point in time, right? Let me get off the data tooltip for this. I see very, very strong bidding, but I just don't see much offering here. What does all this mean? Well, when we see a lot of demand, guys, and we don't see much supply, but price is flat, well, that's telling me that even with all of this demand, price is not able to go higher. What does this mean? Well, watch this. By this point in time, you're probably not going to take any kind of trade if you're a medium-term trader, right? But then look here. This bid cluster actually gets segmented, and it gets a bid cluster shift up. Basically, the lower half of this bid cluster here actually got shifted higher. What impact did this have on price, guys? Price was at about 78.70. Price went up to a high of what? I mean, I'm reading this in the very bottom here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but price went about $5 higher. Even actually $4 higher after a large bid cluster was placed. Basically, price is having a very hard time to go higher. But guess what? This offer cluster right here, this guy just got placed. And what effect has this offer cluster had on price? Yeah, it's prevented price from really going any higher at all. Now let's do action reaction. This action created really a bearish reaction, right? Price should be going higher with this much demand. Now, this action created bearishness. This added supply actually had a bearish effect. Putting all this into context, basically supply is greater than demand because demand is not really coming through here. Demand is present, yeah, but it's not having any effect. Supply is suddenly present and it very much has an effect. And price falls. Another thing that you can see here is distance to bid cluster and distance to offer cluster. Here you can see price had, before it dropped, of course, had gotten quite close to transacting on the offer cluster. Price never got close to transacting on this bid cluster, on this offer cluster. Sorry, this is a bid cluster. Price had never gotten close to this 7,900 offer cluster. It just didn't even approach it. But this bid cluster down here was approached multiple times, as you can see here, until we got a bit of a deflection where you could have shorted somewhere around here on a deflection, and then price completely tanked. So this is what you have to look for. What is the immediate reaction of price when you see a large bid cluster or offer cluster placed or canceled? Here's another point that I will show you guys. This large bid cluster was placed right here. Now, what effect has it had on price? Well, I would actually say that it's had quite a bullish effect on price. I mean, price has stayed higher. Price is not making any deep retracement. Even with the reduction in bidding here, I'm still seeing strong bullish pressure. What does this offer cluster effect had on price? Well, I would say not much because this offer cluster was placed at a direct market bottom. Price rose regardless, and it doesn't really seem to be mining the 7,800 offer cluster. So from this, just looking at these big, large walls here, I would call this quite bullish. I think that the action reaction is really favoring the bulls and that price will likely continue to rise. Now, what I also want to show you guys is, if it lets me go back in time here, let's go back and look at directly this range. Now, I think Bookmap is kind of, yeah, it's still loading it right now. Bookmap's being a little bit slow because I loaded up 12 hours of data because I really want to take a really nice medium-term approach to trading, to order flow trading, because I understand that a lot of you guys are not going to be scalping. A lot of you guys are going to want to look at the bigger picture, determine if price is going to go up or down, and then find a trade to profit off of the ensuing trend. So what I want to do here is let's zoom in on exactly what I talked about before price went lower, and let's look at the key elements of really what was going on here. Let's go back in time a bit. Okay, I'm going to hold it here. Well, you can see here we have a large bid cluster placed at around, what is that time? 625. And it, guys, it just didn't have much of an effect on price. Look at this bid cluster's placed. Price doesn't care. This large amount of demand should do something. Look, I understand that the bid cluster was shifted lower, and then that typically will cause, a bit of bearishness. But with this much demand added, I would expect more of a reaction, wouldn't you? And we don't really get much of a reaction at all. But then when we get this offer cluster placed, watch what happens to price. Price is unable to go any higher. Price makes a high here just when this large offer cluster was placed. Then price just can't really do anything. As you can see here, even this bid cluster that was, this was shifted higher, this does nothing to price. This is showing me that clearly supply is greater than demand and price is going to fall. We need to be able to sell this soon to make some money off of it. And you can see here we get a lot of volatility, but I'm going to go a little bit more micro, a little bit more zoomed in to really show you guys what had happened during the initial stage of this drop. You can see that we have a lot of things going on here, my lord. So we have this large bid wall here, this bid cluster, and it is deflected, meaning it is bounced. Price goes up and then breaks it. That's a deflection. This is times where you could short. You see price, you think price is bearish, it hits a wall, it goes up, you short during that retracement up, and then you make money after it breaks the wall eventually. And it does break the wall here. And eventually what you're about to see is a big drop, guys. And there's the drop. So you can see, let me try to go right before the drop and still maintain that macro big picture view. You can see that there's just a lot of walls flying around. But if you really pay attention, you can really see that the sell walls had more of an effect than the buy walls ever did. All of this demand was added, but it still didn't really do much to price. I mean, it really didn't. It was the offers that had quite the impact on price. These offers here that really got price moving. This is showing me that the sellers were just completely in control. And for the current price, which is what you're looking at here, let's really zoom out because this is too zoomed in for me, especially for a medium-term trader's approach. Yeah, I would say even with all these offers up here, at the current price, again, this is current price. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. This does look quite bullish to me. I still feel that even with all of these offers added, I think that those offers should have had a bearish effect on price. They have not had a bearish reaction. So this bearish action has not had a bearish reaction, meaning that I think price is likely to go up. Again, what I'm talking about when I say action, reaction is we just look at it for any change in order depth, and we see how that impacts the price immediately. So here I can see that those offer walls were added, but price continued to go higher. Added supply, but price goes higher, which is telling me that the buyers aren't really respecting the sellers' large walls. Okay, so that's going to do it for today's just quick segment on what to look for with action and reaction on a medium-term trading approach, and how I was able to generate a bullish bias for where price is likely to move in the future. Again, I loaded a ton of data. I loaded 12 hours of historical data, and this is what you're going to get when you load that much data. You're going to get Bookmap moving a little bit slower. It's your choice of how much data you want to load. I like looking at a lot of it and then really getting a nice big picture approach. But of course, it's up to you with what you want to look at. You can see here that this blue showed where some large offers were added. You can see here, large offer added, large offer cluster. Not that large, but an offer cluster was added here. And these haven't really had much of an impact on price. So I wouldn't be too shocked in the medium term if price was to rise. In the short term, really a lot can happen. But in the medium term, I think price rises here. Okay, guys, that's going to be it. Keep watching out for action and reaction. Bye-bye.